I learned something about the ALC screen. It builds upon some information that I had like learned in the past, but like I don't know if it's gonna make any sense. Like I really don't. Like, all right, so response curves and like input mapping and all that shit. Our input strength is split up into like 10 stages of acceleration. 1.3 has 111 and then a bunch of zeros behind it. When I change my dead zone to high 5, I remove 2 stages of acceleration from the front, and then when I'm playing with no outer threshold, I have 10 stages of acceleration, 8 stages of acceleration in total. At some point between like 8 and 9, this orange ring removes a stage of acceleration from the back of it, so that my input strength, like my input mapping, has 7 stages of acceleration. And then at some point in like, what, like 10 or 11, another stage of acceleration is removed. And then I think I'm at a point where I'm at 3 stages removed. I got it written down on paper, but it's like, I really am not sure of where it's happening. I just know that it is happening. I can't fucking talk to this. It is way too fucking confusing. Like, just hearing myself say this shit, just like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? I, I really don't know how. Like, I know what's happening. I just can't explain it, and the game ain't helping me explain it. Like, this is some shit that I'm noticing, and the game ain't even like like halfway explaining to the player. I know what the fuck is happening. It's just how the fuck do I articulate it? At some point between 8 and 9, a single stage of acceleration was removed for sure, and then at some point between 9 and 10, or like another stage of acceleration was removed, and then at some point between like 11 and 12, another stage of acceleration was removed from the back. Like, and the way I know this is as I was clicking point by point through the outer thresholds, I could tell when it was a 112 and a 122 and a 222, and then like if there was one stage of acceleration, two stage, three stage, and then I basically like removed this as I kept increasing it. Once it hit like a 112 pattern, I noticed that it was like I could tell that it was overlapping, and then I could retroactively like pay attention to when it was a 222 and then a 112, and then like how many positions was in between that let me know that stages of acceleration were being removed from the back. It's super fucking complicated, like unnecessarily complicated. It's creating a boundary, like it's doing something to my input mapping where I begin like I hit maximum speed sooner, but it's also creating an acceleration pattern. And like the developers of this UI and this menu and this setting screen did nothing to inform the player of what the fuck is happening. I'm at this acceleration pattern because it is as strong as like it needs to be. If I make my acceleration pattern weaker, I struggle to interact with the circle of linear. If I go to what is it? If I go to one above default 11, it's another. One above default 11 is a 222000 pattern with two stages of acceleration being removed from the back. That input strength is similar to what is happening at 12 because the outer threshold is here, which is doubling the strength of that input. It and as I increase my outer threshold to like two above default 11, it wraps back around to here, which makes my initial input weaker than it was at one above default 11. And in order to get this to the same input strength I was at one above default 11, I had to continue to increase it to what, like low 12? Second lowest 12. So it would wrap back around the front again, and then I could add stages of acceleration to the back. That way I can have acceleration back here and have my initial input strength still be as strong as one above default 11. Fucking complicated for no fucking reason. There are four positions below each default outer threshold position, and there's usually four positions above each default outer threshold position, at all at the same number. But it seems like when it starts to remove stages of acceleration from the back, it might be adding a fifth digit above them, because at 9 there are 5 9s above default 9, and at 11 there are 5 9s above default 11. But like default 5, default 6, default 7, default 8, all of those have 4 above and 4 below. And like the shit I'm explaining is extremely specific, because the acceleration patterns I'm describing are like reliant upon my response curve. Like my response curve is a 1 1 1 with a bunch of zeros after it. But other response curves are different than that. So like the shit I'm saying possibly doesn't even fucking like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like it's not a one-to-one comparison with other shit. Like I don't know what happens if you do this at like 7 curve. If you go to default 7 and you shrink it and you remove acceleration from the back of it, I don't know what that's going to do to your input mapping. Like I don't know if it's going to condense it or if it's going to actually like remove the shit that's in the back of it. Cuz here I'm just fucking with the outer threshold patterns. But like it could fuck with input mapping, but I don't, there's no way for me to know that unless I do that, and I ain't doing that cuz I'm fucking around here. Like it's way too much shit. And then also my dead zone is like unique to my controller, and my dead zone is affecting how many stages of acceleration are removed from the front of it, which is also impacting how many, like how it wraps around in the back also. So like if I change my dead zone, which I might eventually do, I might go down to 0 dead zone and like try and keep this outer threshold in this position just to see what the fuck happens. I would have to like, it impacts like how many, like how aggressive it is in the front right now. Like it's at high 5 and 1 3 when I'm at 2 below default 12, it's wrapped around the input mapping multiple fucking times. Like it's not just an acceleration pattern. Like it's every time it wraps back around to the front, it is increasing the strength of my initial input. And like the strength of my initial input is important in order to interact with the slow zones. But I'm at this to interact with the fucking shape of this, because this shape prevents me from getting to the character unless I'm at this input strength. Ridiculous shit. Ridiculous. I'm currently at high 5 and 2 below default 12 at 1.3. I got my optics set up to low point 4, low point 4, low point 4, high point 3. This is the ADS for sure, and I think this is just the ADS at 1.3. Like I keep going back to 219 because at 219, like some sensation of like my ability to stay on target is like diminished if I go to 220. And then at 186, my vertical is like as solid as it can be. The shape of my vertical is there, and then if I go to 187, it starts to shrink. 186 and 195 are the same. I can play at 240, but I'm playing at 231 right now because I didn't like how 230 felt.